Great. Well, I'm really excited to welcome and introduce this panel. My name is Sarah. For those who don't know, I am BRIC's Director of Communications, and I actually have a PR background, and I'm also a creative in my second hat. So, really interested to attend this personally. But thank you, everyone, for joining. Today, our session is the importance of PR in today's ever-changing industry. PR is one of the most misunderstood tools in a creative's arsenal, yet mastering the art of how you present yourself and your work to the world is one of the most powerful moves you can make for your career. And today we have Dana and Gayle here to kind of walk you through it, hopefully make it a little bit less intimidating and less misunderstood. Dana and Gayle, I'll let you take it from here.
Great. So we'll just do a quick intro of ourselves. So Gail and I have worked together. We worked together very early in our careers, representing actors at an agency called Wolf Casteller. And then we kind of went on each to go our different ways. I have a lot of TV background, both live action at Paramount Television, and then I was at the Walt Disney Company for about 15 years, overseeing all things PR for TV animation. And since then have gone out on my own, repping lots of creative behind the scenes folks.
Yeah, and as Dana said, started out working with actors, and then I stayed on the personal representation side, but I sort of expanded and it worked with different types of creatives throughout my career. I worked at AFI Fest and at TIFF for a little bit, so in the independent film world represented directors at another agency, and now I work for myself and mainly working with TV showrunners, people who like the creators of You and Transatlantic, Unorthodox, The Girl from Plainville. So that's us in a nutshell. I just realized I forgot to put my dog away, so I apologize in advance if she starts popping off, you guys. So I'm going to share my screen and then we will get into it. Oop,
Yeah.
it's
So,
sharing is not
we've
turned
part of why we really wanted to be here with you guys today is that Gail and I have both always loved collaborating with the behind the scenes creatives, really passionate about helping people like you better understand the PR process and the terms that we use and tools and expectations when you're doing PR. So in addition to in each of our individual client work, we created a new company called the PR Boot Camp, which we're really excited about. It's a program designed to help emerging creatives feel more confident, um, speaking about themselves, and also gain a clear understanding about sort of the ins and outs of PR. And we're going to take you through a mini version of that today. We're really excited to be here with you.
yeah. So, you know what we look like. He already did our welcome. So, we're going to start off with just some background, kind of the what and the why of publicity. And then we're going to take you through these four parts: creating your narrative, building a presence with purpose, strategic visibility on the room. And we're going to give you some, really concrete steps you can take now, today, in these areas. So let's start with a definition of publicity, because that is a question we get a lot. And, again, it's something that people have a sense that they want to do or that's important, but they don't really understand what it is. So here are the textbook definitions: publicity and public relations. A publicist then is somebody who carries out these functions. We all know that the industry is very crowded right now. So we've got a lot of studios and streamers. This is just a handful of them. But we've also got new media and fast channels that are popping up every day. So there's a lot of different places content is being created. And not only is the industry competitive and crowded, but it's also restructuring, it seems like every day. faster kind of than we as humans are able to adapt. So the one thing that has remained true in that is having an authentic narrative about who you are, what you do. A clearly articulated personal brand can help you break through all of this. It can make the difference between your project landing with an impact or blending into the background. And even with all the change and consolidation, there's still a lot of new shows being made. I found a report from a company called Luminate from last year that said 1,122 TV shows premiered in 2025. That is down from the year before, but that's still so much. So publicity then becomes a key business decision. I know that often sort of in my conversations with behind the scenes creatives, writers particularly, they think, oh, well, I don't want to do publicity because I don't want to be more famous, or, I don't want to be well known, but that's not really what it's about. It's about creating and differentiating your brand, who you are as a creative in the marketplace, what you stand for, what you want to do, and shaping that so that it can then help you get more of the kind of work you want to do. So in the short term, it's about getting people to watch your TV show or your film. But the real goal ultimately is about having you tell the story about your work in your words, the way you want it to be known, and allowing you to do more of the kind of work you love. Years ago, we had a client, an actor, who said she wanted to be like that navy blue blazer that hangs in the back of the closet and never goes out of style. So now that's something very clear, something you can understand, and that really is how she has approached her career. AI, of course, is a big question mark across all parts of the industry. And originally, the thinking was that it was going to completely demolish sort of press and outlets, but we're actually finding the opposite is true. It's making interviews more important. LLMs obviously need a lot of information, and finding that what it's pulling from are, New York Times, Variety, all of those outlets, but also more niche focused outlets. There was a study by SEMrush that showed that LinkedIn is now the #2 most cited source in AI search across every major AI platform. LinkedIn has responded to that by completely updating its algorithm and now prioritizing topical relevance and expertise over connection-based reach. So what this means is that things like your LinkedIn posts now influence both what other people see, but also what AI sees. Other research has backed that up across LLMs in general. They prioritize topical relevance over broad reach. So even something that's a top line outlet or magazine may not sort of get pulled from about something that has more authority in a particular area. How does publicity differ from marketing? This is also a question we get quite a lot. So marketing is the overall umbrella. So it includes everything that a studio or streamer might use to help people know about a film or TV show. So it includes both paid and unpaid forms of promotion. So it includes all these things: posters, trailers, website, etc. You'll see that publicity is a piece of that. It's a part of the marketing umbrella. And these are some ways that it's, differentiated. It's the opposite of paid, which is, advertising, ad buys, things like that. It's unpaid. It's called earned media. So it really is about the relationships that you build with outlets, with journalists, and the quality and interest of your narrative. So the three things that you need to think about when you're going out into the world, and maybe you're, talking to journalists or thinking about what is an interesting story, it needs to have three things. It needs to be original, insightful, and timely. So an example of this is if you have, let's say, a film and a festival, say you're doing a festival run, you know, you don't start approaching the journalists once the festival starts, or even try and get somebody interested a week after. It doesn't matter. That ship has sailed. They're on to the next thing. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Dana.
Right. So now we're going to talk about creating your narrative. So this is all about what makes you stand out as an individual. And it's also about how do you want to present your story and your project to industry decision makers and consumers as well. So some important things that we want to consider and you want to think about who are you, obviously, what you do, and why does it matter now? What makes it unique? And really, what do you want to be known for versus how you've been perceived thus far? You're not stuck in something just because this has been a certain way previously. And also it's good to sort of, think about, is there a through line in your work? Are there themes that you gravitate, themes or topics that you gravitate towards, types of storytelling? Most of you are storytellers out there, and you've already, you're used to understanding deeper themes in your project. You're looking for this organically anyhow in the work that you do every day. And you can do a version of this in crafting your own personal story. Um, there's sometimes stories that you might not even think are interesting that actually really are to other people. Gail and I had a client who talked about she was in animation and an artist, and she talked about that her grandma used to bring church flyers to home to her, and she would draw on them. And she just kind of mentioned it in passing, and the two of us thought it was just such an endearing, beautiful story. And given that she was working on a show that was about her family, it very much was something that we wanted to call out in part of her as part of her narrative. So that's sort of interesting to think about. And again, just considering all the things that make your project unique. Is it a personal story? Is it your inspiration for why you got into this business? Again, another client shared a story about how she knew when she wanted to get into animation, and she was, it was in the, I don't know, 80s, 90s time frame, and she was watching MTV and saw Tom Petty's Running Down a Dream music video, and it blew her away, and that was it. She said, I have to do that. And that's also that's something that reporters will also be really interested in. It really paints a picture, and you can visualize it. And the more you can do that when you're talking to press, tell, coming up with a story that could potentially be pitched, and also when you're interviewing, that sticks with someone. Other things that you can think about, is your project about something that's an international trend that's going on? Is there something different about the production or about the production process? Is there an all-star cast? Is it all being done by a local cast and crew? These are all things that can come into play and make your story and your project unique. I worked on a show that had a choreographer who choreographed for animated characters. That was really something different that you don't always see. We have another client that does puppet-based live action series, but very much designs them as if they were animated. They do storyboards, and that is so that they can do bigger, bouncier type movements that you could do in animation, but they do them live action. That was something that was very interesting, for instance, to Variety for their artisan section, because it's just a unique way of filming a project. So you really just want to look at using your story to craft your positioning statement and what differentiates you. And really, this helps a PR person, if you were, it helps us when we're working with clients and they come to the table with these interesting stories and they've really thought through what is unique about their project and about them. Um, there's a client that is a showrunner, but he's a songwriter and has won Emmys for it. And that's really unique. Not a lot of showrunners are also writing lyrics. So that's something that we're going to be calling out on a press campaign. Um, yeah, so that's really something to think about. And here's a good quote that we both really love. It really just says it all as far as what this showrunner, how she presents herself, and she's definitely it's a strong personal narrative from a creative force. So we like to look at this a lot, and remind ourselves of it when we're doing our thing too.
Yeah, I just want to add, because we were once doing a talk to a group like this, and somebody said, "Oh, well, but there's nothing interesting about me. I'm not a Rhodes Scholar. I haven't climbed Mount Kilimanjaro." It doesn't have to be the biggest, boldest, grandest thing. It can literally be something as down to earth and easy as your grandma brought church flyers for you to draw on because she didn't have paper. It's just think about what is real and what is meaningful. So next, we're going on to building a presence with purpose. So what that means is once you've got the narrative, once you've identified that unique thing in your story, who you are the candy. It's carrying that through your materials. So you want to be telling a consistent story again across all of them. That includes your bios, your headshots. If you have a website, the copy on the website, as well as your social media accounts. Consistency is key. So just keep that in mind. When we talk about bios, it used to be just a bio would be, my name is this, I was born here, I went to school here, I did this thing, thank you, and the date. But it doesn't have to only be a list of facts. In the same way, social doesn't just have to show your current accomplishments. It doesn't just have to show, a press clipping from here and here you on set. They can both have a point of view. It's something that you can really personalize and have fun with, and just, make it unique and comfortable for you. So, here's an example I pulled from online. You can read through it. The things that stood out to me is one, professor and mystery writer. Boom, you know right away who she is and what she does. Two, she talks about her sort of the things that you might know her from. And with these titles, you can tell very clearly that it's about mystery writing. Next, her accomplishment, short stories. Again, Mystery Magazine and The Crow. Even if you don't know what it is, it leans toward being a story of a mystery writer. Teaches psychology. That's an interesting personal detail. Mystery writing online. Again, the turtles. That's kind of a fun little detail. That seems unexpected, but I like it. So this is how you can, structure writing about yourself. Again, whatever your current project is, please put it closer to the top. We see a lot of times people have it at the end, but, I think we all know that, people skim more than they read. So you want to just highlight what is the most important information and put it at the top. When we talk about headshots, carrying through that same example, which one of these to use says more mystery writer, you know? Um, you don't have to go so far as to have like a hat and a pipe. It's just something that's a little more muted colors, serious focus. You're telling the same story. Oh, this is a mystery writer, versus the one on the right, which is something else. Maybe he does stand up or comedy in some way. Social media, same thing. Again, this is someone I just found online because I liked Her account, she's a writer. And you see in the bio right away, half TV writing, half vibes. Boom. Like you're already into her story. That sounds like somebody that might be interesting. Her social media is completely made up of reels. So she's somebody clearly that likes to shoot reels. And I don't know, it may be a little bit hard for you to see, but it's day in my life as a TV writer. It's POV, you're watching TV with the writer, and then she is watching a show and commenting on it from the point of view of a TV writer. It's a couple of things of her on a red carpet. It's, about her workout. So then there's another detail about who she is and what she values. Most of you aren't trying to be content creators. And I understand that, people have a love-hate relationship with social media, but it is good to have some kind of a presence online. Because, when potential employers, somebody that's thinking about working with you or hiring you, that's going to be one of the places that they look. It's just to see what you're about. And this is a great place to start showing what they're about, what you're about. Think of it as like a living, breathing portfolio of you as a creative, as an artist. So, if you don't like to show, let's say, I don't know, what you had for breakfast, you don't have to. If you don't even like posting that much, that's okay too. Just have something up that represents who you are and what you're about. You know, um, you can also, if you have an aesthetic that you particularly like, let's say, you're, I don't know, like antiques or sort of oldie timey, you can give your social media that kind of a look too, either through the colors that you choose or the things that you write about. Let's say you went to an antique fair. So my suggestion is start looking through social media accounts, whichever one that you like, that you think that you're going to follow through on, whether that's LinkedIn and Instagram, what have you, Threads, and start looking through some accounts and figure out what is it that you like about them? Why, what is the story they're telling? And what are they doing that could feel natural for you to do?
I'd also chime in about social that reporters are also going to be looking at your social media. If when you get to the point where you're doing interviews, they're going to be looking at it, and so that's another thing just to think about.
Absolutely.
All right.
Visibility.
Strategic visibility. So this is all about learning to identify and pursue visibility opportunities that match both your personal goals and also your audience. Um, so, what are some outreach strategies and how can you best work with the studio or streamer PR departments? So, want to take an inside look here a little bit about what a PR person does and how they approach their work. Um, and really what's worth chasing and what's not and when. So really, again, as we've said throughout this, it's important to determine your goals for the project and for your personal brand. Both very important. And as Gayle mentioned earlier, the press is looking for timely and relevant stories. They love current trends. That's what they're looking to write about. And it also important is in addition to press is to think about speaking engagement opportunities, panels, thought leadership opportunities. These are all really great ways to get yourself out there, in addition to press. Also important is to think about ways to get yourself sort of in front of your internal studio or executives and staff, um, and external press outlets. So getting to know your PR team is really important as far as if you're at a studio, have a project at a studio or a streamer, a, video game company, where whatever it is, it's good to make friends with the PR team. That's important. Establish that relationship. let them know that you're available to participate in whatever they need. It could be an external press opportunity, but it could also be something internally that could equally be important. There could be an internal comms opportunity that such as an employee newsletter where they feature different creatives doing interesting things. There could be special events. Maybe there's events they do for employees where they highlight what creative people are doing at the company. Those are all interesting things to think about that get you in front of decision makers and endear you to a variety of different audiences.
Can I just jump in for a second
Yeah.
and just say that when I was working at AFI Fest, if we had a festival filmmaker who, reached out to me at the top and said, "Hey, just introduce themselves, let me know that they were around and available," that made such a difference that to really, help them stand out. And I was much more likely to direct opportunities their way, if for no other reason than their name was fresh in my mind when things came up.
Yeah. And also going back to what we were talking about earlier, if you're also coming to the PR team with like, hey, I'm not sure, but I've kind of kept track of some things that happened during production, or here's some things that could be interesting about our writing staff or whatever it is. It's information, and PR people love information. They may or may not think it's suitable for press purposes, but at least it's out there, and they know you're being thoughtful about it, and that's appreciated. Um, Another thing to really think about is when it comes to social media, it's the importance of having a conversation with, if you have an individual PR person, or again, especially with a studio or streamer PR team, video game company PR team, it's really vital to have conversations before posting materials from a project on social media. Because what you do on your own very much can influence the overall PR campaign outcome. And it's not always helpful. I know people get excited, they have a project, they want to get it out there. I totally understand that. But sometimes, you know, well, first of all, as a creator, what you post or share it's a reflection of you, right? And your talent and your project. But it's also it's a it's an extension of the work, and it has to be polished. It has to be good. You really want to think about what you're putting up there, because once it's out there, it's out there. Um, and as far as, when there are, if you can offer non-exclusive clips and photos and that kind of any kind of special content that can be shared that's not something exclusive, great, have at it. But things that are exclusive, like trailers, clips, first look imagery, character reveals, these are all things that are a huge part of PR campaigns. And so it's really important to be careful. You don't want to just rush into posting something, because that could incredibly conflict with what the PR team's doing. And that could be a big missed opportunity for a first look in whatever it is. Entertainment Weekly could be, the PR team could be planning a big character reveal with Entertainment Weekly, and oops, you or someone on your crew posted something on social, and it's out there. And once it's out there, it's done. So that's definitely something to really just, you want to be in lockstep with what the PR team is doing.
It's also just something really important to know for how press operates generally. I had a potential client approach me a while back who wanted to sort of get a big feature on her wedding. Um, Gorgeous pictures, but unfortunately, they had already posted everything on Instagram. So, an outlet is not going to be interested in something that's already been on the World Wide Web for a couple of weeks. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, and something like that, to Gail's point, if I mean, and I know this is more in the actor realm of things, but if that actor knew that they wanted to have People Magazine do an exclusive on their wedding, that is something that Gail would have needed to go to them a month, at least a couple months out saying, hey, are you interested in this People magazine, for example? And that would have been like locked in, and it would have been very clear, this is what you can post on your social, or you can't post on your social till this hits. And it's just timed, and then you can post on your social right after. So those are things to think about for sure. Um, then let's get into a little bit about big events. So obviously panels where you can talk about your work are very valuable. Um, it's important to really strategize though about the big events. People get really excited about things like Annecy and Comic-Con because they are exciting. But it is important to understand that these are also very, very crowded, noisy marketplaces. So it isn't, I wouldn't consider that a PR opportunity unless there's an event that a bigger entity, a streamer or studio's putting on and they've arranged for it. Then it becomes a press event, and the press team is putting that out there, and they're securing opportunities. Um, but otherwise, going to those events, it's great, but there shouldn't be the expectation that you're going to be doing interviews at something like that. It's just there's so much noise and clutter. It's hard to break through at something like Comic-Con, even with big, huge projects sometimes. So, consider those events though they could be very valuable networking events. So that they're worthwhile, but maybe have a plan in place for yourself of who's going, who you want to meet, and what are the events that are happening, and consider it a really good networking opportunity. Another thing that's important to do is to familiarize yourself with the key media outlets that cover TV and the types of shows or projects that you're working on. It's really important to be familiar. Um, and it's also a good idea to follow certain reporters, follow certain outlets on social media to start kind of establishing that relationship and an understanding of what types of things they like to write about. Really, really vital. And it's also important to understand media cycles and how to work with them. So it's not a great time, for example, in the entertainment industry, it's not the best time to pitch news when it's award season, when you're right around any of the big award shows, the Emmys, the Oscars, the Grammys, all of that. If you're wanting to pitch variety during that time, I mean, that's really a tough, tough battle. It also just comes into play in general when it's a really busy news cycle. There's big hard news, world news going on. It's hard to go up against something like that. So it's important to kind of look at the calendar, and hopefully the timing that you have a project releasing is in a sort of a quieter time, and it's not so, it's already so competitive. There's fewer, while there are a lot of press outlets, they're kind of shrinking. And as Gayle talked about earlier, there's so many projects, there's so much competition to get into these outlets. So hopefully your project's at a quieter time to come out.
Absolutely. So this brings us to our final section, Own the Room. And it's about talking about yourself with confidence. I know this is nerve-wracking for a great many people, but it is important and vital and a skill that you want to practice and learn so that when the opportunities arise, you're ready for it. So the media basics are this. First, talking about yourself with confidence. If you're going on a panel, you've already got an interested audience. They've already chosen you, okay? So your job then is not to lose them. It's about to show up prepared, focused, and talk about the things that people were interested in to book you on the podcast or the interview or the panel. One of the things you can do to help you with that is learning about the art of the soundbite. So It's making what you say concise, focus, keeping your answers tight so they don't run on. I was on a red carpet escorting a very well-known novelist and screenwriter, and such a lovely man. But his answers went on and on and on, and I'm watching the reporters, and I can see them, their eyes just clouding over, and the information that he was imparting just got lost in these really long answers. So just keep it tight, keep it concise. If a reporter or a moderator wants more information, they'll ask. They'll ask for that. So one thing you can do to, as you're building that muscle, is just get in the habit of repeating the question in your answer. So let's say the person says, tell me what your show is about. And you say, well, Ted, my show is about XYZ. So that will just help you as you're building that to stay focused. Learn to anticipate common questions. You all have watched enough junket interviews or read things online to know that, there's basic kind of questions that journalists ask. There's basic information that people want to know when they're talking to you. Things like, how did you come up with the idea for this show? How did you get started? Where did this idea come from? What was it like working with the cast? If you're a woman, there will undoubtedly be a question about what is it like being a woman working in animation or video games. Same if you're a person of color, there will likely be that question. So what you can do now is prep for that. You can watch some more junket interviews, read some more online stories, and get ready. Like, think about the kinds of questions. And if someone was asking you those questions, how would you answer them? Along the same lines, do your homework. Start with writing down, let's say, the 3 main ideas that you would want to get across in any interview or appearance. These 3 things will then become your talking points. And then you'll go into it already knowing in your mind, these are the 3 things you want to hit, regardless of what the actual questions are. You know that this is the information that's most important you want to get across. This could be, again, how you came up with the idea, could be behind the scenes or a production story, something that happened on the set, how the cast got along, something interesting that happened in the recording studio, or just even the themes about your project that you think are most important for people to understand. If you're working with a studio or streamer, that PR person or team may also offer you talking points, especially if it's something that is sensitive or sticky. And then you can work back and forth with them to craft your answers in a way that is comfortable for you. You're not just repeating something you read off a stage, but again, personalize it. If that is the theme of the day, it's making it your own. You can also bring yourself to every conversation. So by that, we mean when you're prepping for press or panel, think about what can you do to make yourself comfortable. That could be, based on what you wear. It could be wearing a favorite, scarf or sneakers. But it's also about how you can create the presentation. So we had a very lovely client who really did not like to speak in front of people. It made her very nervous, and she had to give a very big speech. So what she did, being an animator, was that she created a storyboard. And she had her PowerPoint up there, and she delivered the points of her speech as a storyboard, complete with sound effects. It was amazing. And the audience just was hanging on her every word. They were entertained, they were laughing, and she was comfortable with giving it. So think about things like that. Lastly, on this point, understand your audience. Who are you talking to? If you're giving an interview to a trade, something like an animation magazine, something that understands the nuts and bolts of your work and you can go into more detail, that's very different than talking to People magazine which is going to be more personality driven, more story driven. Um, they're very different conversations. Oh, one thing I forgot about on doing your homework is just picking up on what Dana said about researching journalists in advance. So let's say you are talking to John Smith from People Magazine or, Jane Doe from The Hollywood Reporter. Go through, look at stories that they've already written, see how they approach interviews, what their rhythm of their writing is, what they talk about, and also, what they're interested in as people. And then that helps build a rapport and build that connection, so that you can be friendly with them. Um, but, be clear, they're still doing a job. Being friendly doesn't mean sort of telling all your darkest secrets. It just means building a rapport so you're comfortable, they're comfortable, and you can both get what you need from the interaction. Lastly, I'm going to head it over to Mr. Morgan Freeman. Remember that you are the boss. As the interviewee, you are in the power position. You have the information, you have the interesting stories. If you don't say it, they don't have a story, okay? They can't write it. So just go into that knowing with that confidence that it really is sort of up to you to say what you need to say. And with that, I say thank you. That is the end.
All right. Thank you so much, Dana and Gayle. That was such a wonderful presentation. And I love that you ended it on Morgan Freeman. You both really own the room, like you said.
Well done.
I want to get into some of this Q&A that we've got going on in here. The first question coming from Andrew, who asks, what's the key mindset to do PR on social media without giving your life and your soul as entertainment?
So sorry, what's the first part of that question? What's the key?
What's the key mindset to do PR on social media without giving your life and soul as entertainment?
Well, I think it's just being intentional about what you post. Again, remember Morgan Freeman. If you don't put it out there, people don't have that as fodder. So figure out what is the thing you're comfortable with. If you're the world's greatest dog aunt, and you want to post the pictures of a dog, do that. It doesn't have to only be pictures of that dog, but that can sort of be the basis. Again, it can be things like a morning walk. It could be something that ties to, what it is you're doing in a job. It's a line and it's something that you have to, practice. But again, I think one of the best ways is going through and finding accounts that do the thing that you want to do or that you're comfortable with and see how you can recreate that in your own account.
That's great. All right.
Yeah, don't do anything that's not authentic to you. I mean, you don't want to be someone else. That's not gonna work. So you have to really think about what you want to put out there for yourself.
Love that. Our next question comes from an anonymous attendee who asks, how should independent creators approach personal PR if their goal is not only visibility / content creation, but actually getting leads and job opportunities? What should we prioritize to convert attention and likes into real work?
That's a good question.
I know it's a long one. Wait, I want to hear that again because I want to make sure I'm getting all of it.
Sure. How should independent content creators approach personal PR if their goal is not necessarily visibility or content creation, but actually getting leads and job opportunities? What should they prioritize to convert attention and likes into getting real work?
Well, I, mm, probably their social. I would say, especially if you're artists, I think what you put out there from a social media standpoint that really kind of shows the breadth of your work. I think a lot of studios or those in charge of hiring, I think they're looking at that kind of stuff. I also think if you're, like we talked about earlier, if you are assuming if this person's working somewhere right now, I do think to form relationships with people around that company and get some visibility is important. And and I think probably the networking events is another one.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can, you know, so in a lot of ways, the online world has made it easier than ever to connect with people and the people that you want to work with and somehow get in front of them. So if that's following them, and that's commenting, connecting with them on LinkedIn, um, and then you have all of these materials in place. So when they go, oh, who's this person who keeps commenting on, whatever, they will go look you up and they see all these amazing things that you have done. It really is about, like I said, positioning yourself to be ready for the opportunities when they come. And when that one person, they may see something like, oh, that's so cool. I love it. I want to do the same. Or this is the kind of person I want on my team.
Yeah, and I'd also say that, I think people are mostly good, right? And I think that people are willing, if you're in a career or you're aspiring to be in a, move up in a career that you're in, and people that, I mean, LinkedIn is very valuable to see who are you connected with, who are the people you're connected with, who do they know? I think people are willing to talk to you. And if there are people that do what you're aspiring to do, like the next level up, um, see if you can figure out a way to connect with them and reach out. I think, people like to talk about themselves. So I think if you can kind of get in, the worst someone can say is no, or they can just not respond to you, right? But if you're coming to someone from an authentic place of, God, I'm really love what you do, and I admire your work, and I'd love, can you spare 5 minutes to talk to me about how you got to where you are, something like that. I mean, people will do that. And I think with the PR teams, if you're in a position to talk to a PR person, you can kind of talk to them, hey, what were some of your best experiences working with with an animation director? Or like, what were your best experiences working on a show? What breeds success? I think asking a lot of questions is a good thing to do.
Great advice. We've got another question here from an anonymous attendee who says lots of new upcoming creators are conflict averse and struggle to resolve conflicts out of their concern that they will get canceled. What are
Mhm.
some of the steps that they can start taking today so that they can persevere through negative public attention and develop a healthy, positive public image?
Mm.
Again, that's a very big question because it's so situation specific of how to answer it. Interestingly, I don't see people being conflict averse. And interesting, I see people the opposite. There's a lot of people who are inviting conflicts for likes and attention. Again, it's really hard to answer in the abstract, unfortunately. Um, I, I think the thing to remember is that cycles move quickly. And for the most part, if you don't feed a negative attention cycle, it will tend to pass. They like drama, yes. It tends to pass quickly. So I think the biggest takeaway would be if you don't want negative attention and it happens, is just to stop talking about it. Stop posting
Yeah,
about it,
it'll go away. It
and
will
it
go
will.
away. And I think it's also really important. This is where being super mindful about what you post on social is very important. Even just honestly, I had a client, and he kind of went and posted something, and we didn't really talk about it before, and he got like, words matter, and you could have the same message and say it one way and piss a bunch of people off, and you could say it another way and it can have a lot of impact, and an outlet may quote it in a story, so that it's a fine line. So I think you really want to look at things many times before you post them, especially if it's something that's making a statement like that. And I'd also say, you don't just because people are, I know sometimes it's hard if people are putting stuff out there and it's negative and you want to kind of stand up for yourself or whatever it is. Sometimes silence is better. It makes it go away. And there's just, sometimes you just don't need to engage and you can just just dismiss the noise.
Yeah,
Sometimes it's good
Disregard.
not to stoke the fire.
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. We've got a question from Libby who asks, is it possible to maintain an online persona, such as being a YouTuber or a content creator in general, and also be successful in the professional art/film industries? To what extent should we keep our professional work and online personas separate from each other?
Hmm, that's a good question. Um, Again, it depends on your ultimate goals. So if the things you're doing are diametrically opposed, there's no overlap in sort of your online YouTube persona versus, your professional work, then definitely keep them separated, different accounts, maybe different names. Um, it is more like your fun outlet or something you're developing. If there's any way that it is part of the whole story of you as a creative, then mix them up if you can. It's not disqualifying, I don't think, for an employer. So let's say, like here's an example. One of our clients um, was working on an animated Marvel show. He also, in his personal life, was a huge comic book fan. He had like this massive collection of like 30,000 comic books. Okay. That became something that we incorporated in the talking points and became very interesting to journalists because it was part of who he was, it was part of the work he was doing, and really like his bigger career trajectory. So I think it ultimately always goes back to what are your final goals for your career.
I'd also say people are kind of crafty, so it might be hard these days to like have something separate. I mean, there's always a chance someone's gonna if it's something you really don't want associated with your professional career and it's like you're not feeling good about it, like that's I think I would caution because it's they all kind of I feel like people can find stuff. So you might just want to be mindful of that.
Yeah, use a different name.
Yeah. Something I don't know,
Good
but to
tip.
the degree, I mean, who knows? But yeah.
All right. Um, I want to get to two questions because I feel like there's a recurring theme here. The first one being, have you ever worked with a client who doesn't feel like their personal traits or goals are all that unique and that they were concerned that they and their maybe traditional dreams wouldn't be able to connect with newer audiences?
Hmm. Wow. Well, definitely the answer to the first part of that is yes. You kind of threw me a curveball there on the second one.
Hmm.
The second half. Dana, do you have thoughts?
Say it again. That was about the personal. Yeah, the first part I agree. Read the second part of it again.
Have you ever worked with a client who is concerned that they and their traditional dreams wouldn't be able to connect with newer
Yeah,
audiences?
yeah, okay. I
I
don't
would
know. I
say
feel
personally. I don't know what you think.
did you say, Gail?
I said I don't I'm gonna say no.
Yeah, I feel like we find something. I feel like we work with clients to really turn over every leaf and figure out what's something that will connect.
Yeah, like we
And
do.
hopefully the project will connect. And
Yeah.
I mean, if they feel like there's nothing that they really want to share from their personal life, hopefully they're putting something out there, presumably that will connect with today's audience in some way.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
I feel like there's an audience for every project, or else it wouldn't be being made.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
while I mean, it's very common for people to think, oh, I don't have anything important to say, or I don't have anything, I can't write anything interesting, and then they start to write, they start to, tell you things and share stories, and you're like, yeah, this thing that you didn't think was interesting is actually super interesting. So,
Right. And
Yeah.
I will say, these days, again, in some ways, it's easier than ever to find an audience. Like if it's you're interested in it, right? You have these dreams and interests and desires. There's a really good chance there are other people out there who have the same thing. So then it just becomes a matter of finding them and sort of speaking to them in a way that lands, and just believing it and a little bit of trial and error. There is this tendency, I think, for um, us, to think of, oh, well, this thing didn't work. People may not or must not be interested in it. But, if that was a business, they would call it research and development and then just tweak it and try something else. So think about this effort as research and development until you find that audience and the way to speak about it.
and it
That's
is true that
great.
not everything is a press story. Not everything is going to be a press story, but there's so many. We were just having a lot of conversations about social media. There's so many ways to get your story out there to an audience and to connect with people, and it doesn't have to always be via press. It can, there's a lot of ways to do that.
Great. And just one last question, because I know a lot of our audience are independent creators, they're producing indie projects. Do you have advice on what is the ideal time to engage a PR pro or a PR rep when producing an indie project?
We have lots of thoughts on that.
We need a part two.
We need a part two. I mean, I think Gayle can definitely talk to like festivals and stuff, but I think that the moment when when there's interest in the project and it's going to be in a festival, it's being submitted for something. It's all about timing. I mean, usually when press comes into play, it's leading up to when the public can see something. But that could even potentially be a Kickstarter campaign that's launching. I mean, we've seen stories like that happening now that I was kind of surprised me, but I've seen Animation Magazine write about Kickstarter campaigns.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, because people aren't going to want to write about something that they can't see, right?
Yeah.
They're not going to write about something that is still withheld. So it's really like when you know that it's finished, that let's say if it's a festival, that you're on your festival run and maybe, these are the festivals that you're applying to, and then you can talk to somebody about creating a plan. We start anywhere from 3 to 6 months before a release date, depending on the length of the campaign and how big. I mean, let's talk about, what is that? Spider-Man just dropped its trailer. That movie's not coming out for 9 months. It's going to be a very long campaign versus something else. Maybe, my friend's film is coming out in a month. So I will say this, it's better to have the conversation early than late. So even if you're not sure when it's coming out, but you're going to want to engage a PR pro, start looking for people, start having conversations, and then you can adjust the start date instead of I've had too many people come to me when it's too late for me to actually help them.
That's
And
great
any
advice.
good PR person will say, hey, we can't it's too early to do this, but I'm glad we're talking, and let's touch base in 2 months, and then we'll go from there. But just, yeah.
All right. Well, I know we're right at time, so I want to thank you, Gayle and Dana, for joining us at the BRIC Summit. This was a great session, and I hope to all of our attendees, you've gleaned something and have learned more about public relations and publicity today.
Thank you
Thank
all for
you.
being
Thanks,
here.
Sarah. Thanks,
Thanks all.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.